people.
Oh, there are already
Yeah.
4 people who want to join. That's pretty cool. With the morning events, people are rarely on time and they usually just join when it started. So people are excited for the topic, I guess.
Let's see.
It's a fascinating topic.
So what's the plan? We have intro for 5 or 10 minutes.
Just like
Then
actually less than that, like less than 5 minutes. I'll just talk a bit and then I'll hand it over to you, and then
okay,
talking about your presentation, and then we have questionnaire.
perfect. Oh, we have the first person. Good morning, Andrew. Nice to see you.
Good morning. I didn't know I was the first person since there are so many other folks.
More, you're the
Organizers.
one with camera.
First person with camera. Hey, Mario, Sumit, Benedict, feel free to open up your mic or camera and say hi if you feel like it.
Good morning, guys.
Good
Hi.
morning. This is Mario.
Good morning.
Hi, Maria.
Hi.
Hi, Liz.
Hello, hello.
Hey, good morning.
Hello,
Mario,
good morning.
I think we've met in person at this McKinsey event back in 2019 at Factory.
You're talking to me, Mario?
Oh, I think we've met in
Yeah.
person. Yeah.
Might be, yeah. Could be McKinsey.
They were doing something around machine learning, a sort of invite-only thing where people, or
Okay.
I don't know if it was them, but it was an event at Factory Berlin. Like,
yeah, okay, yeah, okay. I think it was exactly when I was basically changing jobs, so maybe I kind of didn't pay that much attention to it because I was more focusing on getting on the new job. Yeah, okay.
Should we start then?
Yes.
Okay, I'll just go live and I'll let you know. Yeah, we are live now.
Okay. Good morning, all. We are product people, and we host talks related to product management. And if you like what we do, you can join us on Telegram, and you can support us on patreon.com. So today we have Daniil with us, and he's going to talk about how you can use storytelling as a product manager and how it would be effective. So I'll hand over to you, Daniil, and then you can continue presenting.
All right. So that was a very short intro. Thanks for saving extra time and getting straight to the point. Just a few words about myself, because we will be using a company that I work in and a lot of examples. And I work at Tier, which is a micromobility company. We offer electric vehicles. They stand on the street. You can use a phone to go and scan them, unlock them, and take them for the ride, like scooters, mopeds, and bikes now. And I work there as a head of product. And in Tier in general, we use storytelling quite often, especially in the leadership team, when we need to share an impactful vision about the future in a way that is engaging and inspiring. And I've been interested in this subject for quite a long time, even before Tier, trying to understand what actually makes a good storyteller. And are there any specific KPIs that you can measure as a product person when it comes to your storytelling? And if there are like hard skills and soft skills, do you need to be born a storyteller or not? And I decided to pack this all into a talk that I gave already internally at the company. And then Mirella was very kind to invite me to the product people community as well to repeat the same talk. I'm going to ask you to interact with me a little bit in the chat, because I'm going to be asking some questions. What do you think? And it's really important for me to know what you think, because some of the examples are tricky, and I would love to know how you take them. So after the presentation, we're going to have space for questions and answers. So with that, I would like to start and share my screen. All right, now I'm gonna present. Perfect, now you should see that. Okay, let's start. How to be a product storyteller. And a very long time ago, or once upon a time, there was a planet floating somewhere in the space. And 4 or 5 billion years ago, it existed and nothing was happening there for a long time until a very special event has happened. And a new species arrived, developed on this planet, and they were called humans. And this species, they had a very special and unique skill. They were able to tell stories. At first, while they were young, they were telling stories about animals and dangers that waited for them in the jungle, and share it with their villagers to tell them that something is coming and they need to be prepared. After a while, as the humanity developed, they starting to spin more complex stories, and they become mythological stories about heroes and giants fighting each other to promote courage and bravery and to inspire other people. As time passed again, those stories evolved even further and they became religious story to convey the wisdom that the humanity amassed across thousands of years to display what it means to be a good person. How can you live in harmony with other peoples? How can you defeat chaos in your life? And that was a foundation of religious storytelling. Even further past that, stories evolved and they continued to evolve until they became a piece of art, just to show a piece of beauty or harmony to bring joy to your life. And we started to have professional literature. And even to the modern age, our stories are developing, and now they inspire us and they tell about, for entertainment, they talk about heroes fighting evil monsters or demons or saving the planet. And this is something that we eagerly watch and follow. And the storytelling's been around with us for a very, very long time. It's been a key factor what differs us from other animals. We can tell them and we can imagine those stories. And when we think about that, we all remember this notion that a brain has two parts. You have an analytical side that's good with numbers and logic and predicting the statistical outcomes. And then you have the second part of the brain, which is more creative, which is more artistic, which is more emotional. It is almost like that. It's, of course, much more complex than that, but it's a good approximation. And the beauty about storytelling that we are engaging both sides of this brain. You're going to use the left one and the part one, because before we tell the story, which is, of course, a very artistic and creative action, we need to create the story. We need to write it ourselves. And this is a very technical task. We need to pick the words, organize the sentences, and this is how we set the story. So we're going to go through several exercises today, and we're going to start with the basics of what it actually takes to write a story. And we're going to start from the very, very top. What are the goals of a storytelling in general? And there are three of them that is very easy to remember. The first one, that every story should tell something to the audience that they don't know. Because if you're telling something that they already know, they will not listen to you. Our brains are amazing at being super lazy. So if I tell you something that you've been hearing hundreds of times already, your attention will go elsewhere. So the most powerful stories and the most engaging are the ones that are sharing something that that the audience doesn't know. The second part of the storytelling is a key component to take a complexity and really simplify it so it's easy to understand. And if we think about those religious stories, for example, about how like 10 main rules of life, how you should not kill and how you should not steal and so on, how to be a good person. It's very difficult to understand what it means to be a good person, but through narration, through examples, you can simplify this complexity. And the same comes to any university studies. If you are sitting at a lecture and the subject is very complex, it could be neurobiology or something like that, it is difficult to understand. But if the speaker is able to wrap it into a story, it will stay with you for years. And you probably remember those lectures from really, really long time ago, that there was one speaker, one teacher that was really good at that. And of course, the last one, which is very technical, it's better to focus on less things than on more things, because it's easier to remember less things than more things. And the good number here is 3. And that's why we also have 3 bullet points on this slide, because it's easy to remember when it has 1, 2, 3. Okay. and then you go to the next one. We're now going to do some stories about the plot, because when you choose how to tell a story, it should have a structure. And I'm going to offer you 3 basic structures how you can do the storyline of your story. The first one is quite simple. It's why, how, and what, which is also a golden circle of Simon Sinek. And if you haven't seen his TED video, it is one of the first ones and has millions of views. It's an incredible video. Go ahead and Google it. It's only 10 minutes, but will show you a really high level of storytelling. Super engaging, super motivating. Every time I look at it, it sends shivers down my spine. And if we take example of Tier, the micromobility company, I can explain what the company does through this storyline. And it would look like this. We believe that our world should be green and sustainable. To do that, we have to change mobility for good and free our cities of cars. At Tier, we offer electric vehicles for rent. Do you want to ride one? And you can see that I start and engage with you directly on a very high level of values and emotion, but on the level of beliefs, that we have a big mission statement. And then we go down and we say, okay, what is the plan? How do we get there? How do we change it? Okay, let's free our cities from cars. It's still very quite on a high level. And then the last sentence is very specific. This is what we do. This is our actions. And you can use this storyline to tell about your product as well. The second type of storylines is a bit more, comes from literature. It's when you have a hero that has a specific goal, but there is a problem or a villain that prevents the hero from reaching this goal until this person meets a guide or a wizard or a wise man that solves this problem. And we can use the Tier as example, and that would look like this. Urban citizens need to commute every day. But because of COVID-19, public transport is no longer safe. Luckily, there are Tier scooters on the street to help them move from A to B. And you see that the hero here is, of course, your user, and the goal is the unique value, the job to be done of your product. Villain is the problem space that it doesn't really work for them. And of course, the guide or the wizard is your product that helps them to reach that goal. The third type of storyline that you can use is situation, complication, and then resolution, which also a very common narration in literature, because storytelling is mainly used by literature. This is the space where it evolved naturally. So with Tier, it was going like this. I was going to an important meeting when I saw my bus would be delayed for 20 minutes. So I grabbed a Tier moped and arrived on time. Super simple. You have a problems, you have a situation, you set the scene in the first one. The complication is something is not working. My internet is dying. I ran out of megabytes on my data plan. There is a long queue to the bank, and then the resolution, okay, finally I can do it alternatively with the help of the product. So we can use any of those, depends on your mood. You can go through the why, how, and then what to be more of a like powerful mission statement. You can tell the story about the user and his journey, or you can tell the story about the problem space and focus on that. And all 3 are working equally fine. So let's do some basic exercises. This is the part where I would like to have your input to see what you think. And we're going to work with text a little bit to see which one is invoking more emotion, more response from you. So let's take a look at the first one. Tier is a micromobility scale-up with electric scooters, mopeds, and bikes for share. All vehicles are fully sustainable, are charged with green energy, and have 0 carbon footprint. Maximum scooter speed is 20 km per hour. Scooter base is wide and sturdy, and it's easy to drive. There is a helmet in each moped under its seat, which is also a storage compartment. Could be easily a description of the services and scooters and mopeds. Why not? Let's take a look at the second text. Tier offers electric scooters, mopeds, and bikes for share. All vehicles emit 0 CO2 and use only green energy for charging. Scooters accelerate up to 20 km per hour. They last several years thanks to a sturdy wide base and are easy to drive. Mopeds have helmets under the seat, and you can also use that space to store your bag. Now, I would like you to tell me which one do you like more. the one on the left, which is number 1, or on the right, number 2. So please type it in chat. And they're basically the same. They use the same words. They're roughly the same length, but they should be evoking different feeling from you. So we have one reply from Maria. We have Kashka. Okay, so quite a few people think that the second text or is organized better. Let's take a look. Why is that? What's the difference in those texts? So the main thing that's different is the verbs that you are using. The ones on the left are very descriptive. It's the words like to be, there is, and there are. They tell that something exists. The ones on the right have verbs that are actions. You offer something, you emit, you accelerate, you have, you use, you store, and this describes a movement. And of course, when you feel a movement in the story, you are engaged with it. And this is why we like action movies and hero movies so much, because they're full of action. Every 10 minutes, there is a combat or something is happening. And when it's like slow pace and it's just very visual, it sometimes might be very difficult to follow. And this is the first and the most powerful technique of storytelling, that you need to change your painting into an action movie and just spice it up with those strong action verbs. All right, let's go to the next exercise and read some more text. Imagine you work in delivery. You receive a list of places to visit, load the goods in a truck, create a route in Google Maps, and set off. You feel energized and awake in the morning, just like now. This city is bustling, and so are you. But sometime later, you're getting tired. Other drivers now seem arrogant, and the city is imposing on you. Our app is preventing traffic incidents by detecting when a driver needs a break. This could be easily an elevator pitch of your startup, of your idea, of your product that you tell to someone. And instead of just, saying this is what we do, you create a little story. Like imagine you are a driver, you work in delivery. Now let's take the second one. Imagine you work in delivery. You need to visit a dozen places across the city, and it will take your whole day. In the morning, you feel focused and full of energy, but already after 2 hours, you get tired and lose concentration. Our app detects when a driver needs a break to prevent traffic incidents. So this one is a little bit smaller, but it still has the same idea. You can still see that it is a story, you can connect with it, but it just takes less time. And the last one. Imagine you work in delivery. You start early and will be driving the whole day. Slowly, you grow irritated and then distracted. You are tired. Our app reminds the driver to rest, and they have 70% less accidents. It's even smaller than the previous two. And in that case, what do you see from the differences between those three, except the number of words? The structure is roughly the same. What catches your eye right now? What could be the underlying basic principle here?
Um,
Okay, keep it short, focus on the impact, measurable benefit. Okay, everyone saw the 70%. Conciseness, emotions. All right. No distraction with a lot of words. Cool. So what I wanted to convey with this example, that when you tell a story, you need to say less, because our brains are very smart and very powerful, and you don't need to explain everything. You need to leave a little bit of space for them to have this flexibility to fill the story with their own details. When you say, you imagine you're a driver in a delivery service, that should be enough to create an image in the head of your listener. You don't need to explain that this driver is wearing a suit or overalls from jeans, and then it's like 30 years old and he ate eggs for breakfast. Like, this is all extra details. They don't bring anything to the story, because just saying, imagine you work in a delivery driver and you have lots of goods you need to deliver through the city, already creates a big picture with a lot of details in your listener minds. So when you tell a story, just say less things and it will work even better. If you think about it this way, imagine your story costs 100 euros of attention money. And if it has 100 words in the story, each of them is only €1 worth. And if you have the same story in 10 words, it means that every word is €10 worth. And our brain is very good at detecting how worthy is information for us. And if it's just €1 per word, we can say, oh, then I will skip half of the words because they're not relevant. And if you start saying, and then you can eat vegetables and fruits and bananas and apples and pears, you kind of know that the next word is also going to be a fruit. And you just browse and you start to do something else on your phone. And try to remember that your words that you say have a value and they should be packed with meaning and with effect and with images and with emotions for your listeners, and they don't have too much extra things. Now, a bit more exercises. We treat your data with safety. We encrypt all transactions with SSH1 and sign them with an SSL certificate. Our call center software is very smart. Our call center software transcribes 97% of the content, detects human emotions during calls, and answers most frequent questions without an operator. Oops. So what do you think is the difference? This is the opposite of the blast example. Now the second part is longer and has more details than the first one. But it's important to understand when you would like to use both of them. So what do you think is could be the underlying rule between the first and the second line? Well, you imagine that this is written in your application and you say, yeah, we treat your data with safety. And the person who's reading this is your user, or it's on your website. Okay, so the first one could be easily a header because it's very short and crisp, and you're correct that it has less technical terms and it's easier to read it smaller. But the second one is actually the content. And if you just have a header without a paragraph below, you will not give a lot of backing for your words. So the rule here is that when you want you give a value to something, you want the listener to evaluate. If you say that my product is very good and very smart, and you just don't explain why, it sounds really strange because why is it smart? How smart it is compared to what? But my product is smarter than that. And if you exactly tell that, yeah, we do this with calls, we transcribe that many, and we do this chat bot that can answer the questions, it really explains the value. So if you want to convey something that you want to say, this is valuable, this is important for you, it is better to explain it in a way that doesn't give a stamp that this is good, this is best, this is top product. You just say what it does, and the listener will understand, oh, it does this, it must be really smart, or it has this functionality, it must be really valuable for me. So the first one could be used as a header to grab attention, and the second one could be used as an explanation. If you don't have the second one, it could be confusing. If you don't have the first one, it also could be confusing. Now let's move to the next set. It's not a secret that storing files in the cloud makes it harder to lose them. If you store your files in the cloud, they will never get lost. They rolled out a new feature in Spain, and to be honest, it is just a beta test. They are beta testing a new feature in Spain. It's much faster to manage your inbox with hotkeys. By the way, our email client has more than 150 shortcuts just for that. Our email client has more than 150 shortcuts so that you can manage your inbox much faster. All right, what do you think about this set of paragraphs and sentences? What's the difference between the first line and the second line in each example? Okay, Andrew, it looks like you're the only one with the response. So the second one connects the feature with the value a bit more directly. Second is more objective. Second is clear and easier to understand. All right, so let's take them apart one by one. It's not a secret that storing files in the cloud makes it harder to lose them. If you're saying that something is not a secret, then everybody knows that it is the fact. And the goal of the storytelling is usually to tell something that people don't know. So if you're saying that it's common truth, you probably are doing something wrong. It's a very strange construct to use in a sentence. In the second one, they rolled out a new feature in Spain, and to be honest, it is just a beta test. So when you say to be honest, it means that just before you haven't been honest. It means that you said something deceitful or maybe even a small lie. And why would you do that? If you want to be honest, just be honest and say the things the way they are without doing this walk around from far away. And the last one, you say it's much faster to manage your inbox with hotkeys. Yeah, of course. And then you say, by the way, our email client has more than 150 shortcuts. And you say that it's by the way, in a way that it's not really important. It's just, oh, it's extra. By the way, also buy milk. But in this case, by the way, we have a lot of shortcuts for you. And this is the unique value proposition of your product. So it's not, by the way, it's not extra, it's actually core. And in a normal storytelling mode, it would be much better to say, this is what we do. We have 150 shortcuts just so that you can use your inbox much faster. And the rule behind this is that storytelling is not casual. You should not be using words that you are using in your normal life when you talk to your friend or your colleague or your mother or your family member or someone else, because storytelling should be a little bit magical. When you tell something, people should realize that it's not just, normal talk. It's a little bit special. It's a little bit with a flair from literature. It's touching emotions, and you're using sentences and constructs that are not really common in casual speech. So you will not be saying, by the way, to be honest, and such things, because it just ruins the magic of the storytelling. And when people realize that, oh, this is just normal conversation, I probably maybe don't need to follow that, and they just tune out. If they think that this sentence and the speech is really constructed in a way to tell you the most important information, they are more likely to engage with you. And storytelling is all the time about grabbing the attention of your listener and keeping them engaged so that they enjoy this process and it's not boring for them. So those were the exercises to how to write the story. And now let's go to the second part, which is how to tell the story. And this is based mostly on my personal experience after researching this for quite a long time. And I'm going to give you some of the things that I found quite important and made me a better storyteller and realize what it is to convey a story. And of course, you can read a lot of things online, how to use your body language, how to move on the scene and such things. And those, I think, are secondary, because telling a story is more about your personality. And the first rule that I have discovered, that when you're telling a story, you need to be very authentic, because people are connected with something that is very sincere and real. If you are just saying a story that you have learned and you need to say it, and it's like a sales speech that you don't believe in, you will not sound authentic. And our brains, they have this magical ability of detecting when someone is bullshitting you. And we can do this immediately, and a 5-year kid can do that as well. If someone is talking to you and they say, yeah, well done, great job, and they're smiling, but you realize immediately that they don't mean it at all. They're smiling just because they're polite, and they're just, giving you some praise, but really they think you are not doing well. And you can see that in their eyes, in their body language. And we detect this really fast. So the best way is just to be yourself, because you have a personality as well, and your personality is usually very interesting. And if you can merge it with your story, is going to be way more engaging. It also is important to believe in the story that you're sharing, because, for example, I will not be able to talk about medicine because I'm not that passionate about medicine, for example. And that means that my storytelling in the medical space is going to be quite average. And the same thing is, if you don't believe in the story as a event of some kind of magic, that you have a hero and you have a guide and there is a product that helps you and there is a problem and this for you matters, then it will work for the audience because it will matter for them as well. So if you don't believe in magic and fantasy, your storytelling will not be magical and it will not create this feeling. But if you do, if you really think that it's so cool, it's really engaging when you have this, I don't know, fantasy world of dragons and Harry Potter and something, and you introduce some bits of magic into your story without, you know, going into all this like spells and casting and so on, you still can create the story that feels like it's a little bit of a fairy tale. And people like to believe in those stories because fairy tales is what made us live through one of the darkest ages. This is really, really connected with hope and with our aspirations to something big. And those hero images are that I want to be a hero as well myself, and I want to develop. And this is why when we watch those movies and read those stories, we connect with the main character if we believe that this character is a good one and is helping others, because we also want to help others. So you want to try to build this connection, and the key to do that is to be very authentic yourself. The second one is when you tell a story, it's a play, so you should be also playful. Enjoy it and have fun with your listeners, because if it's a boring story, if it's a repetition of numbers and Excel sheets, just you speaking, it's not going to work. People will not engage with you. It's all about communication, and the best communication is a game. We have lots of stuff about game theories, and I think storytelling is very close to that as well. And when you just enjoy your time with other people, they will enjoy the time as well. It's very easy to get infected by the feeling, and just try to bring it to your storytelling as well. The third one is when you tell a story, just try to relax and give a little bit more space and slow down, because as I said before, our brains are very smart and they can fill the gaps of the story with the personal feelings, and the best stories connect with you on a personal level, person to person, character to character. And when you tell that you are a delivery driver, people can feel this image of a delivery driver with a lot of details themselves. And especially when you talk about complex things like new products or innovation, it's better just to give them some time to think, because you give a lot of new information, it's packed, it's valuable, every word is like 10 euro price, and just make a break, give them 2 or 3 seconds to realize what are you telling them, to follow through your logic, to understand it, to process it, and then they will come back to you with your attention. If you don't give it, they will just stop receiving new information and you will lose them throughout the story. The next one is when you tell a story, you don't have to tell everything. Because if you want to tell everything, just write a blog post or a book and send them the link, and that will not have any communication, because everything is written there. Go read this document, it has everything, don't talk to me. Storytelling is about talking to people. It's about communication. And that means that when you share something, you don't want to tell everything. You want to leave them engaged to a point that they will come back to you and say, hey, do you have another story? Can you tell me more? Where else can I read about it? And what about this part? I have a question. So the best storytellers always leave people a little bit hanging, and the best movies and books, they have a cliffhanger at the end of the chapter so that you want to flip the page and read the next one. So the best storytellers know that the scarcity of plot and information is really what drives engagement forward. And when you tell a story, just don't tell everything yet. Now, as product people here, myself as well, I like to measure things. And I came up with a couple of KPIs for storytelling that I would like to share with you. And I have 3 of them prepared, how you can detect if your storytelling skills are improving or not. And the first one is engagement. It's the number of people that are listening to you intently. And this setup like we have right now, when I'm a speaker and you come to listen to me, is not a KPI that I would be measuring. I would advise you to take a spontaneous situation. So imagine you're at a party, maybe a wedding or in a bar with friends, and you and your friends start talking about something, and maybe you're passionate about medicine or neurobiology, and you start discussing that, and suddenly more people join your conversation and they start listening. And then more people join your conversation and they start listening. And you're now talking not just to your friend, but you have a small audience around you. And if this happens naturally, it means you or your friend is a good storyteller. So you can detect how many people are listening to you spontaneously, but very intently, and follow your conversation. That's an engagement metric. The next one is retention. That's number of times you're asked to tell the same story again. And probably all of you has a friend that when you go again to the bar and you talk about something and you say, hey, do you know this joke about when American, Russian, and Chinese walk into a bar? And they say, no, tell me. And say, oh, Jake, can you tell this joke? Because Jake is great at telling this joke. So if you're asking more and more again and again this person to tell the same story or the same joke or the same something again and again, that's an indicator of retention that you're doing well. And the last one is referral, number of people who can retell your story. So if I'm now speaking to you for the last 25, 30 minutes and I'm telling you a story about storytelling, my success metric and KPI would be that you understand the top 3 points of the storytelling and maybe a couple of examples. And when you finish this and go back to your work, you're going to grab a colleague during the lunch or your family member, say, hey, I've listened to this storytelling talk. There was a guy, he was talking about this, and he told, and I understood 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different things, and I found it really interesting. What do you think about it? So if you can retell my story, it means I was successful, because this is the KPI that survived for the years. We didn't have digital recordings. We didn't have books for a long time. We've been telling stories from father to son, from grandfather to grandson, and so on. And it passed through generations just by repeating the same story. And if people can retell it, it means they understood what is important. And this is your KPI. And that was the very last slide of my thing. And we're really short on time. So my final ask, as I'm a product person myself, I need to measure my success. And for presentations, I have a different one. So if you don't mind, could you use your phone and open the camera app? Just point it to the screen. It will open a browser on the top. You can click, it just has one question, which is an NPS. How likely you are to recommend it to your friend. Very simple one, and just a couple of free form fields for text. What do you think about this talk? What could be improved? You don't have to do this right now. You can do it later, but I would be really, really grateful if you share your feedback with me. And that was everything. Happy to answer your questions right now. We probably have time just for a couple of them.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Daniel. It was an amazing talk. And now I will quickly hand over to the audience if you have any questions. Like, we have a couple of minutes to go.
I can stay a bit longer if you want, no problem from my side here.
Super. So one question is from Andrew. Any tips for keeping engagement on Zoom?
Wow, Zoom is very difficult. I was speaking to the camera. I haven't seen a single face. I was not able to read your emotions if you're engaged, and a lot of people are not having a camera on, so you can't really see them and you're just talking to the void. It's difficult. So I would just suggest you to practice this with real people, or at least in front of the mirror, so that you get the flow of your speech set out. And there is no super big tips. It just comes with your experience. The more you practice, the more you give the same talk, the easier it would be to talk even when you have your eyes closed. So Zoom is quite special. If you can see the faces of people through the camera, this would be your indicator if they're like bored or engaged or not. That would be my tip. Just practice with real people a bit more, maybe with yourself in front of the mirror. Record yourself as well and look at yourself as a recording to see if you've been interesting and you would like to listen to yourself.
Okay, thank you so much. Any other questions from the audience right now? Okay, before we close, I have actually one more question. So do you think that the product story is equally important for the developers, not only for the stakeholders? So right now you told the story, like all the stories were mostly user facing. How about this particular stories? How will you reframe it for the developers? Like when they have to build a particular feature or something?
I think it's the same if you are a developer yourself and you need to explain, and developers work with an insane amount of complexity. They need to explain it to other people and sometimes non-technical stakeholders, and especially valuable for tech leads. And I think the same rules apply. You need to simplify it down. You need to say important things, but not too much, and also give enough examples so people can evaluate how that works, if it's a fast process or not. And roughly storytelling works the same in any space from what I've noticed, because if you look at different TED Talks, for example, on different topics from sleep to medicine to technology to psychology, all of them roughly follow the same rules. And I think they're basically more or less universal and require some adaptation, but not a lot. So I would say most of the things would apply to technical people as well.
Okay, Super. That's great. So, okay, I think that's all from the question side. And I will hand over to Utkarsha because she wants to talk a bit about product people.
Yep. And thanks everyone for joining. If you want to reach out to me, this is my email, my LinkedIn, my website. I'm happy to connect. Just drop me a message. Happy to have a coffee call in this remote world and get to know you on a personal level as well.
Thank you so much, Daniil.
Thank you, Daniel, for the insightful presentation, and thanks to the audience as well for getting engaged with all the questions. I just have to share 2 job openings at Product People. Daniel, if you don't mind, should I share the screen now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Okay. Do you see the screen?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so right now, currently Product People is hiring for 2 roles: senior product manager, who will be helping us on our client projects to deliver great products faster. And we are also hiring for community manager role that will help our Product People community to reach the next level. So here's the link. If you want to apply, or if you know anyone who would be interested in, you can share this link with them. I'll also share it in the chat. So you're welcome to apply for this role. Yeah, thank you so much. And we'll be looking forward to you joining us in the next events. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks everyone for joining. Have a nice day.
Have a nice day, people. Bye.
Well, I'll be going as well too. Or do you want me to stay?
Off? As in, we're off the live streaming?
Yeah, I'll just stop streaming.